Hi, Jimmy Hamilton here. Just a brief update on the events that took place on Monday this week, the 20th of January. I was preaching in the town of Walsall in the West Midlands, which is, for those of you from foreign climes, that would be in the middle of England. The town of Walsall is a market town, but it's very densely populated with Muslims, as some towns are in our country at this present time. But my reason for bringing this to you is that I was arrested by the police while preaching the gospel there in Walsall on Monday. And I just want to give you a brief report as to how things transpired, what took place, and the outcome of it. I had just started preaching. I was preaching on the seventh commandment, in fact, and thou shalt not commit adultery. And I had not long been preaching, maybe 10-15 minutes at the most, and there were some people who were listening, some just passing by, some at market stalls round about me. And I was approached by two men of Asian origin, and it transpired that one of them was the market inspector who works for the council, and the other one with him was a security man, his security man. The market inspector, however, he didn't do much talking. It was the security man who did the talking, and he was very aggressive right from the very start, telling me to turn the noise down, be quiet, and his language was quite vile, unrepeatable here by me. And he, as I say, he was very aggressive, and I told him that no, I wasn't going to turn the noise down. He said, we don't want this stuff here. That wasn't his words, but we don't want this here. Be quiet and go away. And he reached out and he pulled the wire from my amplifier, upon which of course I told him to keep his hands off my equipment, plugged it back in, and was proceeding to carry on. He kept on arguing. He said, you've no right to be here, you shouldn't be here. I said to him, mark my words carefully, please. At this point, I said to him, I said, this is a free country. We have freedom of speech here. This is not Saudi Arabia. That's all that I said. That really is the conclusion to the matter. I sought to carry on preaching while the two of them, one or two others had joined them too. They were confabbing together, and they evidently had phoned the police. The police came, and a female officer with two male officers. The female officer, she did most of the talking, and she said that they had made a complaint against me, and I said that I also wanted to make a complaint against them, the security man in particular, because of his language, which appeared that the police had no problem with, and also his abuse of my equipment. She said that I said to her that I had proof of what had been said, and she said, well, show me the evidence. I said, I cannot. I said that because It's digitally recorded and of course requires a computer to download it in order to be able to listen to it, to examine it. So I couldn't there and then. But she kept harping on about this. Show me the evidence. I said I cannot. Eventually, one of the other police officers who had been talking to the complainant, the security man, he had been taking a statement from him, and the police officer came back and spoke to the policewoman, something about racism, and at that point she said, "I'm arresting you." Section 4, aggravated racial abuse. That was the charge. I was then, shortly afterwards, I was taken to Oldbury police station, which is about 3/4 of an hour drive away. And I was taken into the police detention centre, booked in the whole procedure, and I was locked up for about the space of 7 hours. I think it was about 9 o'clock at night. No food, no drink during all this time. 9 o'clock at night. I think when they fetched me out of the cell in order to be interviewed. But first of all, I had to speak with the duty solicitor who was to represent me prior to being interviewed by the police. As I walked into the room to speak with the duty solicitor, it turned out that he was a Muslim gentleman. And before I had said anything, spoken anything at all, he said to me, he said that he was sorry. I said, why? He said, as soon as I saw you, he said, I said to myself, this man should not be here. He is a godly man. His words, his testimony. So we sat down and he apologized again and again and again. Anyway, we spoke at some length and we talked about the issue, and I explained to him, that I said, we have people of all kinds of religions. I said I have a respect for a man's religion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with him. To which, of course, he concurred. Anyway, from there, we went into the interview room to be interviewed by the police officer, the detective, who explained to me all the procedure of it, and he went through what had been said and asked me questions, which I answered, and during the interview, the duty solicitor, the Muslim solicitor, he interrupted the police officer, holding up his hands, and he said, "Officer," he said, "please, this is a travesty of Section 4. Tell me," he says, where is the aggravation? Where is the racism? There is none at all. This man should not be here." At which, of course, the police officer held up his hand and continued with the interrogation. That being finished, concluded, I was taken out and brought to the desk sergeant again, and to be booked out. The interviewing police officer, everybody seemed to sort of change at that point. Everybody started being very nice, which worried me a bit, to be honest. Even the desk sergeant who was booking me out was very polite to me. He told me that his father was a retired Elam Pentecostal pastor, and that that he was retired, and he made some references to Scotland and to Scottish football, and all very jovial. And the interviewing police officer, he said to me very kindly that he would transport me back to Walsall, to where my car had been left during the day, which was very kind and very appreciative. But I couldn't help but wonder why all this kindness all of a sudden, this goodness. But anyway, I accepted it, and he took me back to Walsall, to where my car was parked. I was half expecting it either to have been impounded or clamped or something, because or even to have a ticket on it, because I had only parked it for I had only 2 hours on my parking ticket, and now we're talking about 10:30 at night. But lo and behold, my car is the only car in the car park. No ticket, no clamps, no impounding, for which I was very thankful too. So that really was the end of it. I proceeded home from there. The matter now is in the hands of lawyers to explore what needs to be done as a consequence of this. But I just giving you the heads up on this, and so that you know what transpired, what went on, and hopefully I'll get the recordings back shortly and be able to maybe post something of it as to the event itself, what transpired. But I just wanted to thank everybody who had prayed for me and who does pray for me on a regular basis, as this highlights is so important, because these are the circumstances that we're faced with now here in our country, in the United Kingdom. We have to be on our guard all the time. And of course, it's only because I had the matter recorded, the event was recorded both by audio and video, because the problem is that the police are wont to take the complainant's, testimony over against the preachers. I mean, why should this be? I don't know. But they just take the complainant's word for it. So if I hadn't had those recordings, where would I be now? So I urge you, if you're a street preacher, if you go out street preaching, that you need to have some kind of device with you to record everything that you're doing, so that you've got evidence of what you've said and done, and not said and not done, for your own protection. And then my time in the the time in the cell, I was in the cell, I think 7 or 8 hours. I'm not quite sure exactly how long it was, but I spent at least three of those hours singing psalms of praise to God, because I've been prepared for this, almost waiting for it to come. But in the blank pages of my Bible, I have written some metrical psalms that are very precious to me, and so that's all I had in the cell with me, my Bible. So I was able to sing those psalms of praise to God during that time, as long as my voice lasted. So just another word of practical advice, if you're a street preacher, and in the eventuality of your being arrested, being incarcerated, if you have something in your Bible that you can sing praise to God and testify to God and to His goodness in those circumstances. It's a witness, a testimony. I did have opportunity to offer a Bible to the desk sergeant, but he declined. He said that he already had one. So that's it, really. We're just waiting now on the outcome. As I say, it's in the hands of lawyers, and do ask you please to continue praying concerning the issue, the event, and the outcome of it. But please to continue praying for me as I preach on the streets day by day. I was out again the day after on Tuesday in Newcastle, and out again yesterday, and I shall be out preaching again today. We carry on the good fight of faith, looking to the Lord to protect us and deliver us. These things, this is really, as I think about brethren in other parts of the world who are suffering in the extreme for their faith in Jesus Christ. This is a no thing. I want to keep this in perspective and ask you to as well. It mustn't get blown out of proportion. It's a no thing. It's a no thing. Yeah? In comparison to what other brethren are suffering in other parts of the world. China, the Middle East. Pray for them. Pray that God would uphold them, give them His peace that passeth all understanding. That He would protect them and that He would keep them faithful even unto death. Pray for His suffering church. And pray for the preaching of the gospel as I continue on here in this sin-darkened country of ours, this godless nation. Please, for your prayers, that God would come again and visit our nation and the preaching of His word. But in the meantime, that He would be glorified in it, and Jesus Christ praised, and His church gathered in. Those yet to be reborn, that through the preaching of the gospel they would be indeed born again unto eternal life. Thank you for your prayers. God bless you and go with you.